All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2019. The year is coming to a close. The World Series is over. Ended a couple days ago. Washington Nationals are the World Series champions for the first time in team history, so congratulations to them. So I actually made a video talking a little bit about that, and then I ended up deleting it because it I started rambling on, something like I do sometimes, and I got off on a really long tangents on things, and I was like, I don't need to post that. So, anyway, so what I want to talk about today is a couple things. Some news out of the Royals. Obviously, everybody who's a Royals fan, and people who aren't Royals fans, had heard that Mike Matheny was hired by Dayton Moore to replace Ned Yost, who retired. And I think this is a good move. There's a lot of negative feedback online about this on social media, and a lot of it comes from, maybe Cardinal fans who are, a little more than snarky than usual, just saying, "Oh, good luck, Kansas City. We hated him. He drove a rift in our clubhouse." And the more I started kind of looking into Mike Matheny and why he was let go in St. Louis, there was a clash between his personality and some of the players. Now, the funny thing is that there are some people that say he didn't get along with veterans and preferred the rookies, and there's other people that said that he hated rookies and preferred veterans. So what does that tell you? That tells you that people just believed whatever they wanted to believe, that they just didn't like Matheny. Could both be true? I don't know. I mean, maybe he wasn't. Maybe it just fell apart. The argument that he went to a World Series, now he didn't win one. He did go to a World Series in his second year, and they're like, well, he did it with Tony La Russa's players. Look, this isn't college athletics. It's not college football. It's not college basketball. It's not college volleyball or college baseball or college swimming. It's not amateur athletics. The deal here is that these are professional athletes who sign a contract to play for a team. And in college athletics, the coach is insanely important, because they not only have to be the coach, they got to be the father figure in these kids' lives. That's not so much the case in Major League Baseball. I mean, sure, you could have a manager who could take on a father figure type role, and be an influence on a player. But by and large, these guys are professionals. They are grown-ups. They are mature, and they have their own way. And the manager's there to kind of keep the boat going down the river, not hit the shores. So, saying these were Tony La Russa's players, like Tony La Russa went to all these players' homes and recruited them from their parents, that's just stupid. That's a ridiculous argument to make. It's based in no factuality whatsoever. The thing is that managers and cities and teams and players, the situation has to be right. And for whatever reason, it did not become right after several years in St. Louis, even though he had tremendous success. A .550 winning percentage, multiple playoff appearances, a World Series appearance. So he had two pennants. Maybe he only had one. Trying to think back. They made the World Series in 2013 and lost to the Red Sox. And they haven't been back since. So I guess he won one pennant. And he had to do that without the best player in St. Louis Cardinal history, Albert Pujols. Now, I can already hear people say, "Oh, what about Stan Musial? Stan Musial's better." Look, I'm just calling it as it is. I think Albert Pujols is the best player that's ever worn a Cardinal uniform. And that's not to slight Stan Musial. Stan Musial is one of the greatest of all times. Albert Pujols is one of the greatest players of all time, too. Who's was raised some of his youthful years in Kansas City. I wish the Royals had signed him. That would have been tremendous. But anyway, that's beside the point. My point is that I think Mike Matheny has spent a year and a half already in the Royals organization. got to know the organization, has really taken appreciation to the deeper side of the analytics of baseball, and he's already gotten to know the players, he's gotten to know the front office, and obviously there's going to be a change in the front. I mean, with the ownership changing, Mike Matheny and he's a good man. He's a good moral man. That doesn't matter to some people. It matters to me. But again, he's here to win baseball games. And you can be the nicest guy in the world. If you don't win baseball games, you're going to lose your job. But being a good person helps. It makes it easy to root for that person. At least in my opinion, it does. So, and that's why I'm making these videos, for my opinion. So anyway, I like Mike Matheny hiring it. The reception has been, among the experts out there, has been lukewarm at best. The fans have been highly critical of it, which makes no sense. Like, who else were you going to get? You're coming off 2 100-loss seasons, and you're going to get a guy with a track record who's been to a World Series and has a .550 winning percentage? I think the Royals should be counting the lucky stars they're getting someone with that pedigree. I mean, do people not remember the Trey Hillmans and the Tony Musers and the Buddy Bells of the world? I mean, that's the kind of managers the Royals historically had to hire, because they were a sad sack organization who just couldn't win. Ned Yost proved they could win. Well, I mean, it wasn't just Ned Yost. It was Ned Yost combined with players, combined with ownership, combined with a general manager, all parts working together. And so Mike Matheny has said he has learned from his mistakes that he has made in St. Louis, and he made mistakes. He fully admits it. And that he's going to use those learnings and become a better manager for the Royals. And I applaud him for that. And that's what everybody should strive to do. If you don't do your best at a certain job, you learn from your mistakes, and you get better because of them. It's like when you play chess. You don't learn chess by winning all the time. You learn how to play chess by losing. Chess is a game of failure. You lose a game, you remember what you did wrong, and you change your strategy, you tweak things here and there. And eventually you become really, really good at it. So, again, I like the hire. I think it's a very, very, very solid hire. I'm excited to see what he's going to do. So the next piece is Alex Gordon. Alex Gordon, obviously, Alex Gordon exercised his side of the option, his player option, and the Royals then went to them for the team option, and they obviously declined the option, which everybody knew. Alex Gordon knew they were going to do that, and so now becomes this. What's going to happen to Alex? Is he going to re-sign for a year or two, or is he going to retire? He's already said he's not going to go anywhere else. He's going to retire as a Royal. He has no desire to play for any other team. So it's either going to be the Royals or he's going to retire. Personally, obviously his bat was decent this year, and he won his 7th Gold Glove. He has a place in the lineup. Okay, Alex Gordon is, and even look back into 2018, he wasn't terrible in 2018. He was pretty solid in 2018. He was just really, really bad in 16 and 17 with fighting injuries and whatnot. So what happens now? So let's look at it from 2 angles here. First of all, and I'm sorry for the glare of the sun back there. It's just where it is in the sky. Can the Royals, do the Royals have someone who could step in if he just chooses to retire? The short answer is no. The longer answer is it's very complicated. The Royals, and I've mentioned this before in multiple videos, when talking about the season, and man, that glare is just ridiculous. Man, you're just going to have to listen. Just turn your eyes away. You're not looking at me anyway. You're just listening. Alex Gordon, or the Royals don't have anybody in their minor league system that, in my opinion, that is even a halfway decent replacement for Alex Gordon. And obviously, replacing a 7-time Gold Glove winner is, you're just not going to find that. I know Brett Phillips, more of a right fielder / center fielder. I mean, if you can play left field, or you can play right field and center field, you can play left field too. I'm not exactly sure if Brett Phillips is ever going to hit enough. I think he has a tremendous bat. He has tremendous ability to display power when he makes contact. The problem is he strikes out too much. So I still want to see what he can do in a full season. And if he strikes out 220 times, then it'd be time to find somebody else. But I just want to see him for a full season at the major league level. And I think 2020 would be a good opportunity to do that. But the Royals obviously fell out of favor with Jorge Bonifacio. Honestly, I think Bonifacio is a guy that is probably not going to... He's probably going to be taken off the 40-man roster. Like, he was on the 40-man roster, and he was not called up in September. He was left off the 40-man, or left off the active roster. For whatever reason, after his suspension, he has just fallen out of favor with the club, and he's going to be a guy who I think is going to be designated for assignment and removed from the 40-man roster in place of moves that they make. People talk about how this is going to be a pretty quiet offseason for the Royals. I completely disagree. I think you're going to see a vast shakeup in the roster construction, which needs to happen. I think there's upwards of 10 to maybe even 15 players who will be taken off the 40-man roster, and we'll make another video to talk about that. I really do think that the Royals are going to look heavy into the Rule 5 draft this year and see if they can find someone that is just flying under the radar. But we'll see. I'm trying to think of the current outfielders they have. They just really don't have anybody to step in and play left field. So that's why I think if Gordon decides it's time for him to retire, then he should retire. And only he can make that decision. I do think that he's going to give it a long, hard look. I think we won't know probably until December, what that decision's going to be. I think he'll take the month of November to think about it. I do think he'll make a decision fairly early on in free agency because, Alex is a good person. And I think he wants to do right by the Royals as well, because they did right by him and signed him to this contract and paid him a lot of money for it. And I think he's going to feel that he owes them at least the courtesy of letting them know what's going to happen sooner than later. So if he decides to walk away from the game, the Royals can start making plans. The best option, honestly, is going to be to find a free agent or to make a trade and find someone. And Dayton Moore, when he first came to the Royals back in 2006, his famous line, I don't think he coined it, but he was the first one I ever heard use it, was that pitching is the currency of baseball. And if you're wondering why I'm looking at the camera so much right now, it's because I'm stopped at a stoplight. With pitching being the currency of baseball, the Royals might decide to pull the trigger. Boy, that was a short light. Man, I may not even make it through the next strike cycle. The Royals might decide to pull the trigger on trading some of their young pitching prospects. They just don't have a lot of offensive players in the minor leagues. Brewer Hicklin he had a fine season this year. I don't know if he's ready to step up and come up to the major leagues. Maybe he is. I see guys like Juan Soto, who is an amazing talent, who has been up for a year and a half with the Nationals, just turned 21 years old. And I see guys like Brewer Hicklin with the Royals, who Brewer Hicklin had a fine season in the minor leagues, and people say he's not quite ready, but he's 23. He'll be 24 next year. I mean, I was like, I'm ready for the Royals to have a player who's 19, 20, 21 years old, who is ready to come up and not just play, but dominate. when I say dominate, maybe not dominate is the wrong word, but to have success and continued success. You know what? That might be Bobby Witt Jr. All reports out of the Arizona Fall League, or the Arizona Fall League, is that he's playing well. He signed early so he can get right into baseball. I think he went to Burlington, or I don't know if he went. Maybe he went to Lexington, but he showed pretty well. He didn't show hardly any power numbers yet, but that's to be expected. He's just right out of high school, so we'll see what comes with that. But he is a legitimate talent. I don't think you'll see him this year, but I'm excited to see excited and anxious to see what happens with the Royals' outfield situation. I think the infield is pretty much set. Now, that said, what would I do if I was Dayton Moore, if I was the general manager of the Royals? And I'm just going to assume Alex Gordon is going to re-sign with the Royals for at least one more year. I think he's got another year or two left in him. So if Gordon re-signs, that's one less position that the Royals have to really think about. And then they just have to figure out, do we play Soler every day in right field, or is he our DH? He's mostly your DH. You can find someone to fill in, obviously, here and there. I would give the job in center field to Brett Phillips. I think it's his time. I think it's time for him to go. See if he can handle the rigors of playing every day. And I think Khalil Lee is going to get a long, hard look as well. In the infield, if I was Dayton Moore, here's my hot take. I would trade Alberto Mondesi. I would trade him. I would get some pieces back. And the reason why I would trade Mondesi is because he's injury prone. He doesn't have good plate discipline. He's a tremendous talent. He's got a lot of tools, and he has had good success when he's been healthy. Really good success. But by the time that I think the Royals pitchers are ready to come up and really start dominating, like I said before, I would bring them up right now and let them go in 2020. Dayton Moore's not going to do that. You might see Singer sometime next year, towards the end of the year. You're not going to see all four of those guys. That's why I say, if you're going to bring them up in 2021 as their first go-around, but you want to compete that year or the next year, you know what? Those guys are still going to be adjusting to the league. They may not be ready to compete. And by the time they are, all your position players that you've been bringing up, they're going to be too expensive for you. You're going to have to reload on the position player front. That's why I would trade Mondesi right now. When he's going to be taking off and reaching his free agency years, the end of his arbitration years, he's going to be too expensive for the Royals to keep unless they get a sweetheart deal on him like they did Salvador Perez. He's going to be too expensive to keep. When the pitching is ready to really get out there and get the Royals back in contention. Ergo, I would trade him. I would not trade Whit Merrifield. I was a proponent of trading Whit Merrifield in the off or during the regular season. I think Whit is a guy that the Royals, like Alex Gordon, is a guy the Royals need to keep in Kansas City, and I think they need to do everything they can to keep him here. He's the type of player that will fit well into the future, and he will be the leader of this club with Salvador Perez when the Royals are ready to contend again. So, again, that stupid glare. Man, that's ridiculous. Let's see if we can do that. That's a little better. So, yeah. So what would I trade Mondesi for? Well, I don't know what you could get for him. I wouldn't trade him for pitching. I would flip Mondesi for at least two players that are not in the major leagues but are they're ready to come up, possibly. I would make sure one of them is an outfielder. You'd want to get the most talent possible back in return, and maybe the Royals, put a low-level prospect in there to get maybe two, maybe even three players back. To me, this is all about just getting as many players as you can, and as high talent players as you can get, and stocking your team, and hopefully you hit on several of them. The Royals were very fortunate in their last go around that Escobar, Kane, Moustakas, Hosmer, Perez, all these guys that were coming up about the same time. And I know they acquired a couple of those guys in trades, but just hear me out. When the Royals got these players and they came up, the talk among, sports radio and all the sports guys around Kansas City at that time was, well, some of these guys are going to fail. They're not all going to succeed because the law of averages says they won't. Well, they almost all succeeded. And they all contributed to the Royals winning a World Series. That just doesn't happen that often. And because they're right, the law of averages says that a lot of these guys won't make it. And the Royals had some prospects that didn't ultimately make it that we kind of forget about. But the guys that they were counting on, their high-end draft picks, and the guys that they traded their high-end draft picks away to get, Kane, Escobar, etc., Wade Davis, James Shields, they all worked out tremendously. And that's why I would really look hard with the Royals trading Mondesi away to bring another haul back that they can use to keep building for the future. So if you do that, who plays shortstop? Well, the easy answer is Nephi Perez. Holy cow, that's a blast from the past. Nicky Lopez is your immediate answer. But long term, it's Bobby Witt Jr. is a shortstop, and he's a shortstop. And then I think that's who the Royals need to clear out room for. I think Lopez can handle it until Bobby Witt Jr. is ready. And then you could have an infield of Witt and Witt. The marketing campaigns are already spinning in my head of what they could do with that. That was for you, Patrick. So, yeah, I'm on the trade Mondesi bandwagon. I don't know of anybody that's talking about it out there. I'm going to see if I can get some traction with it out on social media, with my 23 people that pay attention to what I say, which is great. But I really think I think that's the right thing to do. And I think Hunter Dozier is a good player at third base, and he'll be fine there. The Royals need to figure out what they're going to do at first base. Ryan McBroom looked decent in his limited time that he played here toward the end of the season with the Royals. He displayed no power, which was a little frightening to me. But they say he's got power. He's going to be 28 next year, so I'm not sure how long-term solution this is. I always get really skeptical of guys in their late 20s that come over from another team. I'm like, what did everybody else miss on this guy? Probably nothing. He's probably not going to amount to much of anything with the Royals. If he turns out to be a tremendous player, just late bloomer like Whit Merrifield, well, then I'll eat my words, and I'll gladly eat my words. But a combination of him and Ryan O'Hearn is going to have to play at first base this year. I don't see the Royals going out spending any money in free agency to upgrade first base. Perez is back at catcher. What the Royals need to spend the majority of their resources on is in the bullpen. In the bullpen, and maybe trying to find maybe a veteran starter. I really think that they could make a play for one of the guys they traded away in the James Shields trade, Jake Odorizzi. I think Odorizzi is a guy that they can afford, and a guy who could come here and have success. So those are the guys that I'm targeting. I'd like to try to see if they can acquire Odorizzi, and I want to see them take Mondesi out of the equation and trade him, and see what they can get back for him. I think it's a bold move. It may not work out, but I think that's what the Royals need to do. So anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys later. That was a ridiculous attempt to end the video.